I'm glad you are here, especially that it's sunny afternoon. So you chose me instead of ice creams outside. And why did you do so? I hope it will be worth a few words about myself. So I've been working with various products for 10 years now. Out of those, 6 in Ocado, in different streams, different departments. Ocado does online shopping, and part of this is warehouse management. So I started with warehouse management systems, 2 products there, then e-commerce, and now I work with data platform. But what maybe is more interesting or worth to note is that all of my products, many products were of different life cycle stage. So I had a chance to work with very new products, very mature products, and also those which were close to sunset. And because of that, I will try to tell you today about my experience about the decision of a huge piece of work, which is refactoring the whole product or a major component of it. So that was about me, and just to let me understand to whom I talk with, like quick survey, how many of you consider yourself as a product person, product manager, owner, leader? Okay, engineers, a bit more, managers, leaders, team leaders, okay, UX, okay, QAs, cool, we have everyone here, great. Okay, so the fraction of product people is a bit lower than I expected, and because of that, at some point of the presentation, I will spend a bit more time explaining something which is probably clear for product people and maybe needs a bit of explanation to others. Product people usually can hear some complaints about the state of the products, like technical state. And it is absolutely normal. The thing is that the decision to allow engineer team, to do it once again, from the beginning, from the scratch, is a huge step. And it is great to begin all over again. Why? Because you can use your previous experience and now do it better, of course. It's easier with clay, until you put it in the oven and then you make a pottery, because then you don't have much choices. But until you do it, you can reshape it many times. It isn't so with many things, like, for instance, with the buildings. Or in IT, it's also not that easy to reshape after some steps have been taken. Technology ages, and of course, the way we work, the ideas, the patterns, they change. There is a fashion in every industry, and in technology industry there is such as well. And it is absolutely normal that not only a person looks at the code of the other developer and thinks, oh, it's unbelievable, I could do it differently. Sometimes the same person looks at his own code from 2-3 years ago and then thinks, oh, how stupid I was. I need to redo it, right? And it is over and over. So rewriting in IT is absolutely normal thing, and it is only the matter of a time plus industry. In some industries, it is more stable. In some, we need a shorter life cycle, so the changes happen more often. To present you that it is not only IT, there's this old joke of architectural that 2 architects meet on the street, they're friends from studies, and he has a newborn child, and they talk, they congratulate him, then walk away and say one to another, I would do it differently. And this is absolutely normal. In buildings, what is different with buildings is that usually we fix instead of rebuild whole thing. Because with buildings, it is okay to extend the time before to go live. extend the time and budget. In IT, usually we cut some corners. We go with POC, we go with MVP, we go with stages which are important on production. We kind of accept tech debt even from the very beginning. And this is something which makes coding difficult to maintain for a longer period of time. But it brings the value on production. And when I said about the engineers previously that they love to rewrite things, product people, on the other hand, like to add a value. So instead of refactoring, we tend to add functionalities. And because of that, what is similar with architectural aspect and maybe some product people, including me, is that if there's something, even in not great state, we tend to think about fixing and adding new buildings, new aspects, rather than tearing this down and putting it from the beginning. So once again, what is the problem? The problem is that, from product perspective and prioritization, is that we have a working solution on production. And this working solution is brings the value every day. So right now, instead of adding new features, we need to stop that and allow for months or quarters sometimes of refactoring. The cost is big. The cost is not only of the cost of the development which we're doing, but also the cost of losing opportunities that we are not doing because of that. And we cannot do what usually we do when releasing new product. So split it into phases, do with MVP, the phase 1, phase 2, blah, blah. If we have the product which is on the production and we're changing it because we're going to refactor it, we probably want to keep most or all of the functionalities for our clients. So the risk is also huge because there is a risk of going with that decision. Of course, huge cost, big unknowns, the scope is unknown, but also not taking that decision is a risk for losing some engineers, losing motivation of them, losing clients, which can be more appealed to new solutions according to new fashion, new ways of working in the world. This is what makes it, to my mind, difficult to use regular ways of prioritization when it comes to refactoring. I put some here, like the cause of delay. To those of you who are not product, cause of the delay is a way of choosing priorities by how much we lose because we postpone such piece of work. The next step is cause of delay divided by duration. So this is CD3. This one takes into consideration the size of the item itself. But in the first and the second metric, it is difficult because the cost itself is very doubtful because the value is already on production, and the size, the duration of the work is also with a bigger fraction of unknown. It is also difficult to count return on investment, because if the return of investment is the profit divided by cost, I said about the cost, but also profit is very questionable. We already got some profits on production, and now we need to find the difference between what will be the profit in the new situation comparing to the present ones. And there is almost no chance that refactoring will win the prioritization when it comes to weighted shortage of first. It's just too big, and usually the items which add the value goes first in such aspect. So using the numbers, hard numbers to convince, makes refactoring a bit difficult. You will not leave my talk with the formula of when take such decision. Instead, I would like to share with you 4 examples from my experience. I don't know, I had just bad luck of entering products in the shape condition, or but in some of them I took a decision about rewriting, and it was good decision. In some, it was not so. So case number one, bank application. The application which was desktop application, which was there for the employees of the huge Polish bank. The situation back there was that the product was very stable and was meant for a long time, for years. There was no competitors. It was product which was used inside the bank, not outside, and the clients and users were known for years. So basically, instead of refactoring, we could always add the value by adding some features, and there were some features which were to be added. But the cost was very interesting, because the cost of refactoring it, by refactoring there was basically moving to a new web page technology, which opened the door for more engineers on the market, and what was even more important, to keep the ones that were already there and were quite demotivated. So even if there was no delay, delay aspect in not rewriting it, because there was no losing market factor. Of course, users needed to use that, and it could stay like this forever, or at least 1, 2, 3 years more. I took a decision about rewriting it quite quickly, and that was a good decision, which I take as a lesson that if you know that sooner or later you will need to do that, if you do it sooner, you will just start gaining the profits of that earlier. So in the situation that you have a long-term product, very stable, and you are sure that it will stay with you, just do it. However big it is, don't think about the first, second, third, smaller task, which you can do first and deliver some value before that. You will deliver that value, but in the old technology. And you, if you are sure that you will need to rewrite it, allow to it. Second case was it was half of the product, in fact. The other half was the application which generates a lot of data taken from the stakeholders, clients. But the second half was a management dashboard, and it was huge combo, which was basically full of filters, tables, and ideas on how to present those data. It was some years ago. I know that right now we, in the industry, approach that differently with the data platform, for instance. But back then, it was something that was written for that purpose, and it was serving this purpose pretty well. The users were some of the users were very important. Those were like the country managers, business unit managers, but also C-level managers. What was the problem is that the amount of data grew every year, and this management dashboard went into decline. Like it was slower and slower and slower. And we were adding filters, we were adding possibilities to pivot the data and so on. It had more and more functionality, but it was slower and slower and less fancy in the appearance. So, of course, after some of the delays and waiting for any better idea on how to deal with that situation, there was a point when I needed to decide whether allow to rewrite it or not. And here, which is interestingly, I took a decision about not rewriting it because it could be substituted with Excel, just Excel. Instead of rewriting product, I thought about the product which is there on the market, is so well known, and the only thing which was needed to be done is to join the data as a data source in Excel, do some predefined views and charts, and assist users in using Excel instead. It saved us a lot of time, and thanks to it, we could focus on the second half of the domain, so do something which was bespokely needed within that organization. The lesson from this case is that sometimes it is not worth rewriting product if the use cases could be addressed differently. And it sounds very easy to say, but the product people also tend to get bound to the product, because, you know, if it's difficult, what kind of product person kills its own product? It doesn't make sense, right? Basically, you don't think about it as something which should be shut down and substituted by Excel. You should develop it, let it grow. But sometimes, if you have the better idea on how to return on investment, do it. Third use case, that was the application which in millions sent the messages between systems of warehouse and the rest of the organization. And it was in terrible state. To give you some numbers, development team spent 50 to 60 hours monthly and growing on supporting it. Only on supporting it, without any development. What is bad is that, first of all, it is very irritating job for developers, for engineers, but also when supporting happens during the nights, during the weekends, it needs to be paid extra. And of course, it is not building very good atmosphere around this product, generally speaking. So the psychological aspect here was really strong. The team was insisting a lot. And because of that, I took a decision that we should rewrite it. They estimated it to 6 to 9 months. It took a year and 4 months, so 16 months. By the way, it's not that rare, as I tell you before. Design of a new product usually happens during the development. It is difficult to sit down before and plan everything accordingly. So I think that was a bad decision because, and this is what I knew, that this product has a limited life cycle, like 3 to 5 years. It took 5 years, but even so, I still think that this time, over 16 months or 7 people, could be spent betterly. So sometimes you can satisfy engineers in a different way, probably. I know that this is very important stakeholder, and usually it is quite obvious to hear their voices because you work with them on a daily basis. But still, sometimes it is an art of saying no. And the last case, I call it data publisher, but generally speaking, it is a product which makes for many analytics, data scientists, data, anyone interested in data, easier to get by joining data from different resources into one place, making it easier to navigate there. And because of the previous experience, I was holding the decision for many months. Why? Because I knew that maybe it is not the product that can survive for a long time, and I know that the estimation usually is underestimation and so on. But the lesson from that one was, surprisingly, is that I made this product in hazard, because I was thinking about whether it should be rewritten or not, that I made clients thinking about other possibilities of looking for their data. So here, what I could tell you and share with you is that if you can sometimes treat this as an opportunity not to rewrite the product, but to start with a new one. This is what finally we did. I didn't recognize the new product anyhow in my communication and when talking with my stakeholders with the new one. I didn't relate it with the old one. I just thought that we should need new name, we need new approach, and we need new stakeholders to share with them like the new opening and not to lose them, because after all, it is also a chance to have a new perspective on some things. That's it. Thanks. Questions?
Thank you, Thank you, Michał. I think I know the answer, but let me ask. You mentioned about 4 cases. Which decision was the hardest to make?
I think the hardest decision was the decision with management dashboard. Because my stakeholders were quite important ones in the company. So to go to them and say, I know that you have a great management dashboard, you like it and use it every day, sometimes every week, but your directors, C-level and so on, and I'm taking that tool from you and give you Excel instead, it was difficult to communicate.
That's how I thought. All right, the second question may be a little childish. You mentioned about the 4 prioritization methods. Which, in your opinion, is the most crucial
For
making decisions?
refactoring?
Refactoring or not?
Oh, that's a difficult question. You see, we didn't prepare that.
Surprise, surprise.
Right. So when thinking about rewriting, I think the cause of delay is very interesting because it takes only or mainly the value. And sometimes the value is enough. Sometimes the value of the product, which is in a good new shape, is enough to take such a decision.
That's how I thought again. Thank you. Guys, any questions? Yes, please.
So I was wondering, how did you communicate that project that was planned for a few months took more than a year? I'm in a similar situation, so I'm just curious if you have any tips.
So you boil the frog, you know. But being more seriously, you track it. The most important thing is that it is difficult when we're writing, because at the beginning you have like the 100 tasks and you have no idea what's going on, because one task can be then split into 3 another, and instead of burning down, you have more and more tasks. So you're going the other direction. But still, you need to let yourself the pattern of checking every month, every 2 weeks, for instance, where we are, and a little bit of push. Every time with the development team, I made it like, okay, guys, I allowed for such thing because you asked me heavily for that, but we need to be focused on that then, okay? Don't add everything that we like, because there's a big temptation for engineers that if we are starting from the beginning, we can, add, try new things and so on. So instead of doing minimal scope of what is needed to be done, then they treat it as a Hyde Park or whatever. So you need to keep them focused. But then again, you have a little bit more time because you don't have functionalities to test. the team is busy with rewriting, so you need to work with them. No, not this guy, not this guy.
Hey, Michał, you talk a lot about, let's call it initial decision, right? To make go, no go, rewrite or not rewrite. Have you ever been in the situation where you had to change your decision? So you decided to work on something and suddenly you had to stop it? And if yes, how did you deal with that?
That was the management dashboard. Originally, I said, all right, let's try it. And team sat down, and a few days, week later, I saw the number of the, not even tasks, but the topics, themes that we will try to address. I thought that it's not going in the right direction. It's not going to be as they estimated. I thought, okay, it will never end, and it's probably not worth then. And as I said, it was a difficult decision to address that I'm taking from the clients important part of their work, but it was just too big.
Thanks for the great presentation. So the histories you were talking about are the ones where you are already in the place where you are between the rock and the hard place, basically. I wonder if you are at the moment of the project where everything is going great and the project is really smooth and nice, how not to get to the point you were in your presentation. So basically you are in a perfect spot now, but you don't want to end up in a hard place in 1 year from now. So how to prevent the situations you were talking about?
Okay, there are some, of course, steps which can be taken. So allow for constant, regular paying back the tech debt. This is for product people to allow, because usually engineers request that. But of course, this is something which is competing with functionalities to be added, right? So this is what makes it difficult sometimes to prioritize over. But for engineers, I also have advice. Together with product is, I think, my experience tells me that if you split your product into decoupled, smaller sub-products, then it is easier to substitute some of them, refactor some of them, instead of taking the decision of doing everything at once. This is important. It needs a little bit more time at the beginning, a little bit also maturity of the engineers and architectural way of thinking, but it is worth when you have a long-term product.
Hey, I've got a question about, you've got the old product, right, on a production, you maintain it, you fix bugs, you add new features, and you've got a new product that you decide to create from scratch, right? But in the meantime, there is beginning to diverge, right? The old version that is changing and the new version that we are creating. And my question is, how do you deal with that divergence between versions?
Mm-hmm. Great question, because first of all, sometimes we need to migrate data, and that's a thing itself. Well, during rewriting products, there were steps, not that small. When they're migrating, for instance, data was a huge thing. When it comes to the users themselves, usually I have a bunch of the users which are more closer to me, or I get better contact with them, and I allow them first to use the product, if it is only possible. The other option is that if you have the use cases components that you can slowly start enrolling in the new product and migrate functionalities there, you're in a lucky situation, because you can start with one, two, and following functionalities and move the users, familiarizing them with the new product, and also checking aspects like the performance, like the scalability, and so on. But it's not always easy. That's absolutely sure. I think it is very product-specific question, depending on how many users you have, whether you have data, how much can it be split into functionalities which are irrelevant from each other, so you can migrate the users or functionalities to the new product. So many questions. It is because of the ice cream. I shouldn't be joking like
Hi.
that. Yeah.
I just want to ask if this new implementation was realized by the same people or by different people, and if different people, how you manage the human side of this change?
Yes. So one of them was by the same people, but usually it was by different, and it is also the thing that it is probably a bit easier for the engineers to accept that even if the product is not a great shape, but it was them. I don't want to say that they accept it because they know that it's their child, but when it is done by someone else, then the level of I would do that differently is a huge, like, you know, especially that one of those products was something that was inherited by the team. So then you're in, if it is in bad shape and it was inherited, you can hear a lot of voices about that.